Welcome to this episode of your Spiritual Business Coach podcast. I am your host, Ashu, and this podcast is called Cat's 9 Lives of Wealth: How to Release Generational Business and Money Blocks with Gaurav Deka. Now, I am the coach for like leaders ready to own their fierce self expression and build audiences that trust you with their eyes closed. And we do this by integrating feline energy, which helps you birth match made in heaven offers and whisker licking good marketing. In this episode, I have the lovely Gaurav Deka with us. Feline energy has 5 aspects, 5 pillars, if you want to call it. And the first one is healing and rebirth. And for the same, I have Dr. Gaurav Deka on the podcast with me to share lovely insights about intergenerational trauma, healing, and how all of it plays a role in business. We are going to have such juicy conversations today. But before that, let me introduce to you Dr. Gaurav Deka is a queer 9-figure multi-millionaire money and business coach for coaches, healers, and therapists, plus a pioneer in the world of intergenerational trauma coaching in India. Now, I'm going to give it to him. Go ahead. Please tell me your story. How did you become a multimillionaire? Where were you when you were finding your claws? Everything, all about it.
Thank you so much, Ashu, for the introduction. And I think I've had a amazing journey, and I feel that it was all very designed in a way when I look back. Uh, I think I've been to several podcasts, but at the same point of time, at every level, in every podcast, there's one level of story that gets added and added and added. So I started off as an extremely ambitious student in school, and I would perform very well in academics. And I had decided in class 8 itself that I would want to be a medical doctor. And looking back, I also realized that there is an intergenerational tinge to it, because my mother wanted to be a doctor and she couldn't be one, and therefore that dream was passed down. And most children, what happens to them is they also internalize their parents' dream as their dream. So even before I knew that this is what I want to be, or I could be something else, it was about becoming a doctor. So then that was the only dream. And once I got into medical school, that's where the real sort of identity awakening started happening. And I realized that this is not the place where I feel belonged, not only in terms of the kind of people I met or the academics that I went through, but also because I was grappling with the conflict of being queer in a small city like Guwahati. That's where I come from. So I was in Guwahati Medical School. And so there was this more and more and more ostracization. And so by the time I reached my second year is when I hit like rock bottom, and I was diagnosed with clinical depression and severe OCD. And then the journey was about going to the psychiatrist, coming back, going to the psychiatrist, coming back. It was all about medication, a lot of escitalopram, a lot of clonazepam. And that continued for 6 months, to an extent that I had gained tremendous amount of weight. I lost all my hair during my teens. And there were times when I just could not get out of bed. So at one point, what happened is my parents had given up complete hope. And because even the doctor started telling them that the only thing that you probably could do for your son is to gather whatever inheritance, whatever wealth, whatever finances you can gather for him, because we don't think he would be able to ever do anything in life, because he's so broken. So his disease is manageable, but we can't guarantee that he would live a life where he can work and do something about his life. And my parents, of course, took that with a lot of how do you say, like that was a stone word for them. And thankfully, they are from a place where they are well-to-do, and they absolutely gave up hope, but then they worked a lot to bring everything together. Until I finished my medicine. Somehow I crawled through it, and somehow I finished. And at one point of time, I told my dad that anyway, like nothing is going to work out, so let me just go and explore. So I went for a master's in psychoanalysis, thinking that, okay, this is the disease that I suffer from. Let me just study this itself, Let me just find out what it is. So I just went with that curiosity that, okay, let's go ahead and do it. You know, uh, and even that did not quite work out because there also I felt that the process was very slow. It was all about just going back and forth, talking about your problems until I stumbled upon something called regression therapy. And that got me thinking because up until then, I was a pure medically trained brain, clinical brain, and things like spirituality or past life or going back into childhood, all of those things were not a part of medicine at all. And then one thing led to the other, one thing led to the other. And then I realized that this is what I really love. So one of the things that my psychiatrist had said that if you continue with medicine, you would either become a very good surgeon because of your obsessive compulsive disorder. You would not like, you would check every single thing, or you would do a very good detective if you don't continue with medicine. And that's what happened when I was doing regression is I enjoyed the exploration. I would just go everywhere and go into people's psyche, go into their past, go into their, generational lines. I could do that very easily because of that kind of wiring. So in a way, the ailment became a benefit. So from there, one thing led to the other. And I think in 2014 end onwards, I started seeing clients. I just started meeting people. And I told them that, this is how I can help you. And in the beginning, it was 700 rupees per session. That's what I started with in Delhi. And then quickly, I jumped to 1,500 rupees per session. And I took a year's time to jump to 2,500. And then around 6 months to jump to 5,000 per session. And then I kept jumping until came a point. By the time I was living in Saket, I had a beautiful partner, and my parents were like somewhat stable and happy because, okay, fine, he has found something. Until came a point when I went and had my first TEDx talk. And I think that brought in a lot of people into this ambit because people started watching and recognizing what it was all about. And I think from there, it sort of soared up to a point where one evening, I particularly remember I was doing a process of resolving generational trauma called Constellation with a couple. These were two women. And at night, I think they did not know about my fee. At night, I saw in my bank account that someone had deposited 56,000 rupees for one session, like one session. And I started freaking out, and I would like trouble my partner and tell him that, what's happening? What's happening? I just cannot like make sense of it. What's happening? Why are they giving you 56,000? And he said, just go and ask them. And then I did that. And then they said that, you had begun with 700 rupees per session, and $700 at that time was 56,000, so you deserve it. Then they knew about my journey. And I was gobsmacked in that moment and I didn't know how to respond. But that became like a launch pad to imagine that to what height can I or anyone in this industry go to, and what possibilities lie ahead. So from there onwards, I think 2019, 20, 21, 22 is when I started business coaching purely from the perspective of by then I had made around 3 crores. I realized that if I could make that money just by doing what I do, I certainly can help people from this industry make money. And from there, it started scaling, even from my own life and business experience. And that's how today, in 2024, I've made like millions of dollars. If I say in USD, and crores of rupees in INR, and that's where I've come to. Yeah, that's the journey.
I love it. The way you tell the story. You have a way with the words. I guess I can say it that way because as you were sharing your story, I was like, oh my God, there are so many things that we have in common. This is also a possibility for me because I'm an overachieving kid, craving validation, so much academic pressure that it still haunts me. My mother wanted me to be a doctor, but I fought my way very hard and ended up in something I didn't want and also something that they didn't want.
Yeah.
So sort of a midway. I wanted to study psychology because I didn't have access to therapy because of the stigma. I've had medical trauma with 2 surgeries at the age of 8 and couldn't go to from even I read one of your posts where you said, I was like, yeah, me too. So there's like so much similarity, and it always helps to share those vulnerable sides of you. And I love that you shared that 700 to seven rupees to dollars journey.
Dollars. Yeah, yeah,
That's so good. Now, I
yeah,
want to ask you, what beliefs did you have to embody? Or I have so many questions. I don't know which one where to start. I'll throw them all at you. What were some generational patterns playing out in the money field?
yeah,
Relate
yeah,
to them. What beliefs did you have to embody in order to reach this point?
yeah,
All fun stuff.
yeah, yeah. I'll give you an understanding of mm, what kind of family story and background was playing. So uh, my father is the first person from his family to have come out of that village and of the village and of his 8 brothers and sisters who are and were farmers. And he was the first person to come out, have not knowing what he's going to do. But someone told him that, okay, his name is Tarini. So Tarini, just go and you know do engineering from so and so college. You will get entry because now they are just taking anyone and everyone. So you will also gain entry. So he went ahead and then he pursued, and he was the first person to have come out of his village and start doing a job as an engineer. And his first salary was 2,500 rupees. I still remember the rented house we lived in when I was 2, and it was 550 rupees only. 550 rupees only rent. So, but then he has been a person, he's very benign and docile as a human being, but he has been a person who, by the time I started growing up, class 5, class 6, class 7, I had everything. I was one of those rare children who actually had, in a place like Guwahati, a video game by the time he reached class 8. And none of my friends had. So he made sure that even though he came from a place where he had nothing, I remember a story he telling him that when he was around 5, he loved sweet. And one day I was sitting with him and asking him that, do you know where it comes from? Because we don't want you to eat so much of sweet. And he then began telling with his closed eyes that, as a child, I used to run around for a piece of jaggery because there would be no jaggery in the house. You have to buy it. So to that extent, to coming to a place where he made sure I got everything. So I did not have, what I mean to say is I did not have any money related wounds as I was growing up. However, there are wounds before me that I was not primarily exposed to, as the first person. And that is my mom's dad's dad, as in my grandfather's father. He was an extremely wealthy businessman and zamindar. And he was one person who we heard stories about that he would perch on elephants and give away silver and gold coins. And then there is a story. We do not know the details of the story, but there is a story how his kins and relatives conspired and sort of killed him and took away all his wealth. And my grandpa at that point of time was just 7 years of age. And he, of course, it was a tremendous trauma for a child who is 7, doesn't know, because, of course, the mother of that child would be in shambles. So not only does he loses his dad, but he also loses the safety and the warmth and the nurturance of the mother because she's plugged into her grief. She can't be available for the son. However, he was someone who, again, sort of grew up and made that wealth back again. And once again, all that wealth went away. He died of poverty. So you see, the cycle is already going on, right? And there were quite a few resemblances to that story because when I was 7, I started experiencing a lot of my OCD actually comes from there. I started experiencing a lot of fear of that I will lose my mom. Like I would come back home and I would see mom and I would start crying just like that. And I would ask him, I ask her, is dad home? Has he come home? because all the that kind of thoughts would just go on in my mind, and there would be no logic to why I would feel that if he hasn't come home, it is possible that something must have happened to him. And I did not know. In hindsight, I know that I was just reflecting and projecting my grandfather's story. So when I did grow up, and in 2021, my grandfather passed away, uh, and my flagship program in money and business coaching, which is ATIPS, actually started 1 month after that. It came to me right after he passed away, and it felt like a generational boon, is what I would say. But I think the struggle with fear of making money, having money, letting the money grow, thinking that someone was going to take away the money, someone is going to take advantage of me, someone will dupe me. All of these thoughts came from that line, the one that I told you the story about my great grandfather. But I think the biggest hurdles that I needed to cross was what I had acquired from the days of depression. The kind of insults and mockery that I went through for being a queer child and a queer person, a young person. Um, Never knowing if I would be able to get out of the bed. And I think the origin person of my process, the deliberate thought building process, DTB, where you deliberately and intentionally build thoughts and you stay put with it, is my mom. Because she was the one who would she would jokingly tell me that, one day, I'd be in bed and she would tell me, one day you are going to be so busy, making so much money, helping so many people. I don't know how you will have no time to go to the washroom. And that is true. That is true, because there are times when I don't get time to even go to the washroom, have my glass of water, you know. And she would tell me that, it's all going to, like she would say in Assamese, it's all going to work out for you. This is a design. I want you to believe. I want you to believe this is a design. This is nothing more than a design. It's one part of the design. And she sort of, I don't know where it came to her from, but all of this intentional thought that was very hardwired in those days when I was sort of, I was in bed and the medicines would not let me think well because my cognition would suffer a lot. And it was only her words that sort of went inside and nothing else at that time. So I think that wiring sort of started happening from there, even though those were the hardest times for me. So those are the beliefs, I would say. That's how the beliefs came in.
It's like such a blessing to have someone so supportive right next to you and say good things to you. Because as I said, my God, that is the sweetest thing I've heard. So much faith in someone. It's very, even if they're parents, it's sometimes very difficult to have that show that actively. And
Yeah.
I'm just absorbing everything that you're saying. But I love that my father was also the first one to move out of the village. Families have been farmers. And my dad did engineering, then did law, and is a lawyer, and moved to a city. And he used to tell me the same thing. I came from a village to a city. You will go from a city to another country. Like that's the programming he fed. But I've had my share of negative thoughts passed down. But I really love how you shared about you are going to be like the same thing, not being able to go to the washroom, being flipped in a way. It's a positive thing, which is a blessing, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
Explained it so well how things might come down. But I guess we didn't ask the main question of what is intergenerational trauma. So maybe for the listeners who might not be that well aware of it,
Yeah.
I would love for you to explain what it is and how it plays in business.
Yeah. So before I became a money and business coach, and I think it's relatively a new thing that one human being or human brain that has, in all possibilities, excelled in a certain industry and spent a significant amount of time, number of years, and has probably made a significant amount of money, can help other individuals in that industry to grow their business, sustain their business, scale their business, and make money in that business. It is as simple as that, by using their brain, their methodologies, whatever it is. And that's a relatively new thing. And I discovered it purely from the logic that, oh, I can see myself in this industry, working for this many number of years, having made this much amount of money, having had this many number of clients, and I know that it's not that difficult. It is easy. It doesn't have to be difficult. So clearly, I can help other people do that as well. But before that realization came in, I was practicing intergenerational trauma and childhood trauma. Now, this was also a revelation because when I began learning regression therapy, that was the first form of therapeutic work that I learned. While I was learning that, someone came and told me that, Gaurav, there is a process where people meet and people play out roles of different family members. And although the family members are not present, they will be able to clearly act it out as if some kind of force acts through them. And people find solutions to their problems by attending these kind of group seminars. And I was intrigued. I mean, they did not say that eloquently to me the way I put it. So, and then I said, what is the name of this thing? And they said, okay, it's called Family Constellation. Someone is doing it today. Do you want to go with me? I said, yeah, let's go. And then I went, and there was some fee, some 1,100 rupees I paid, and I got in. And I saw this person. I was sitting in one of the corners. I saw this person, the leader or the facilitator, taking a client, asking them their problem, and asking someone to be their mom, someone to be their dad, someone to be their brother, in this whole group of people, group of around 15 people. And then finally, when my turn came, and then I said, he said, what do you want to work on? And I said, well, I don't have a lot of issues. I used to have really bad depression, but then the only issue probably that I have is I don't feel independent enough to pursue my life. I still feel that I need to be with my parents because there is a shadow of the depression that only if I am with them, then maybe I would be safe and secure. So that shadow keeps on coming up. And then he said, well, let's just do it. Then he brought one person who was enacting me. Like, this person had no idea who I am. And then he brought another person from the group to play out my mom, and brought another person from the group to play out my dad. And suddenly, as that process was going on, and those people were slowly catching up to the behaviors of my mom and dad without they knowing, and I was freaking out, of course, at that moment. Then two more people came in and stood next to the guy who was playing Gaurav. Like, there was one person here, there was one person here. And the facilitator said, who do you feel like? And then they said, we are both Gaurav's brother. I am his elder brother and I am his younger brother. And then the facilitator looks at me and says that, you didn't tell me you have siblings. And I said, I don't. Like, I am the only child. And then slowly they sat down, and the representatives of the people who were playing out my mom and dad, they came closer and they held these two guys in their lap, and they started sort of crying. I was observing, and the person who was playing me was also sitting there, and it was over there. And of course, it was my first experience. I just could not make any head and tail out of it. So I asked my facilitator and said that, what is it? And then he said, well, it seems that you've had brothers that you may not know about. Please do not ask your mom. And it was my first experience. I'm like, no, I'm of course going to ask her. So I head out, picked up a cigarette. At that point of time, I was smoking, picked up a cigarette and called up mom. And I said, you never told me that, did you go through a miscarriage or an abortion? And then she was like, why do you ask this? And I said, no, I need to know this. I need to know this. And then finally she told me, and she did not cry on the phone, but I could feel her breath, wavering. And after days, it dawned on to me that how I'm not actually alone. And I was feeling the weight of these two children and taking the responsibility of my parents and wanting to be close to my parents because there are deaths in the family. And so the environment is of fear that even this child is going to die, right? So it explained one dimension of the depression. There were many other dimensions which I found out the more I went into this world, into the world of generational trauma. And that was my first foray into generational trauma. And that got me interested. So I went ahead, I studied constellation work. Then I went ahead and I studied other forms of generational work with Mark Bolin, with Susie Tucker. I read a lot. And that's how I became a practitioner, is what I would say. Right? That's how
I,
that became.
yeah, I love how you've put it, because if you ask a normal person in the sense someone who is doing it, what is intergenerational trauma, they would, or what is it in healing and all of that, they will just give a very bookish
Um,
definition. But I like how you put it in an example so that people who listen is like, oh, I can trace it back. I can also see there's something coming up.
yeah.
And I love that you shared it, and I love the story, the vulnerability you've shared here, because I was supposed to be a twin.
Uh,
The other baby didn't get formed, and I extra kidney, dreams of
yeah.
people. I had an extra kidney, and that was all. Like, I didn't know about it for a very long time. I just thought I was like deformed or something, and God loved me a lot because he gave me an extra kidney. So yeah, like all of those things, how they impact, and then they come through. Now, you came from the intergenerational space. You still do it. I love that. You've not left your roots, and then
Yeah.
you've come to this money coaching space and helping people make massive amounts of money. That's exactly how I'm going to put it. And I want to ask you some questions that people might have asked you a lot, and it might annoy you, but
Yeah.
where will clients come from? My Instagram followers have said, no, I have exhausted my audience. What is the point of posting? Like you say, make the offer. What is the point of making the offer when everyone in the audience has already said no? What
Yeah.
do you say to that?
When I 2014 is when I lived in this place called Jangpura, which is not exactly in South Delhi. Now I live in South Delhi, and Jangpura is so someone called up and told me, and there's this friend of mine who called up and told me that, Gaurav, there is a lady in Rohini, which is like you have to change 3 metros to get there. So essentially, it would take you 2 hours to go in a metro to reach there. Someone in Rohini is going through some trouble. They feel a little suicidal. Do you want to go and see them? I said, uh, first of all, like, I don't know what is the age of this person. I don't know what kind of state. And I don't know if I am, as a young person, and I was like really young, would be able to really help this person. And they said, no, just give it a try. Just go and see. How much would you charge? And I said, I don't know. I was thinking till that time, I was not even thinking of charging. I was like, I am thinking of charging 700 rupees for people who come and meet me in my room. Um, but then if I'm traveling to Rohini, then maybe 1500, because 2 hours and 2 hours, 4 hours of travel. And they said, fine, no problem. So I went, and this was a lady of around 75, and she was in a hospital, and I had to counsel her in the hospital. I didn't do much. I just spoke to her. She told me about the grief of her son being away, her children being away. And I kept going to Rohini every week, spending 2 hours going, 2 hours coming, 4 hours. And that was my first client. That was my first client. And even though I did not know how can I, I was like around, how old might I be at that point of time? 24, 25, maybe. Um, Even though I didn't know that there's such a huge like age gap, and if I would be able to help this person or not, I was there present. Like, I knew that, okay, fine, let's just speak. Let's just talk. She wants to speak. Let me just listen to her. And the more she spoke, the better she felt. I did not do any process. I just listened to her. I did not even have the guts to call her by her name or Mrs. this, Mrs. that, you know. Like, she herself told me that just call me Nani, you know, someone like that. And then I did that. Um, so what I want to say is, she was so happy after like around 8 rounds of meeting. She told her daughter, who was living in Singapore at that point of time, that I'm better. I really want to meet you all. She became more vocal. And then the daughter flew down. And then the daughter met me and said that, I'm so grateful that because of you, my mother at least is able to say what she wants. And that woman then went and told 2 of her friends in Singapore that I met this young person. who is a very good listener. She didn't even say he's a therapist, like he's a very good listener. And maybe if you both spoke about your problems, you might just begin to feel better. Both those two people reached out. I did not even know that one could meet people online. And in those days, you had Skype, and that Skype would just go on like that, and the network would be so bad. But I still went ahead. And then one of them didn't have Skype, and I said that let's just talk on phone, no problem, right? I'll charge you less. I'll charge you 500 rupees. So I was enterprising. I was enterprising even at the 700 rupee level. And my focus, without knowing at that point of time, is how can I really help this person with whatever I have? I didn't have much. I didn't have more than just talking skills. Today, I have a gamut of tools like I can just go to any level with any person to any part of their psyche. I didn't have those back then. I just had simple counseling skills, you know, simple listening skills. And yet, I should tell you that in 2015, I had 4 clients every day working for 5 days, paying me 700, 700, 700, 700, which means in a day, I was making 2,800 rupees, right? In a month, I was making at least more than 12,000 rupees. Sorry, in a week, I was making at least more than 12,000 rupees. And in a month, I was making around 50,000, charging 700 rupees. And that only and only came by nothing because I did not know Facebook. I didn't know Instagram. I don't think it was that popular back then. It was just word of mouth. People would constantly reach out to me on WhatsApp, and I would tell them, let's just have a word on phone. You can come down, because we did not know we can do online work back then. So people would just come down. I had a 2 BHK thing. Actually 1 BHK, because I was sleeping in one bedroom and I just had one drawing room, a small one. I paid 19,000 rupees as rent for that. And they would just come and visit me, and that's all I would do. It was WhatsApp, WhatsApp, WhatsApp at the most. And it was service, service, service. And the only relying factor that you would get client was if your clients would go and tell someone else. There is no other way that you can get clients back then. So anyone who has gone through that, I think, will never have the belief that how do I get clients? Because when you can get clients without Facebook, without Instagram, without email list, without a Telegram group, just by word of mouth, your belief is automatically built that, what are you saying? Where will I get clients from? Because, well, I have gone through that entire experience of getting clients just like that for the last 8 years of my life. So there will be no doubt in my brain that where do I get clients from? So the only way to actually get clients is to really come from the intentionality of how can I help this person in front of me at this moment the best. That's all.
I love that. Yeah, because a lot of times, even when we have clients, we spiral into this negative mindset of I don't have enough. And then the service quality decreases, which
Yeah.
is not the best way to go about helping the person who has put
Yeah.
their faith and money in you. So this does lead in very beautifully to my next question, which I'm very curious about is everyone teaches you, here is how you get a client. And you get some clients, but they never teach you how to create a result or give that sort of an experience to someone that they actually want to refer. Because the kind of questions I get is why people are not leaving me reviews.
Yeah.
How do I get people to leave me reviews?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people. How do you get next results? How do you make that happen?
I'll give you an example. In 2019 May, I had the most extreme form of sciatica. I think I had become complacent with my body and I started taking it for granted. Also, I think I was going through all the withdrawal of the depression medication. So I gained a lot of weight, and the sciatica was so bad that I would not be able to walk properly. So mentally, I was absolutely fine, but now the physical body was sort of deteriorating. I went to the physio for several rounds, had medication, nothing worked out. Until in 2020, I met this amazing guy. His name is Shanky, and he happens to be a fitness trainer. And then he said that let's just exercise. You will feel better. I'm like, exercise? I don't want to exercise. And he says, no, you exercise and you will feel better. I said, fine, let's go. So um, I hated gym all my life. I hated seeing robust alpha masculine people all my life. But then I thought, okay, fine, let's do it for the body. I went there, I started exercising, and then he said, in 3 months of time, I assure you, your sciatica will be gone. That was my only aim. My sciatica will leave. I will just do cardio, no exercise. Done. That was the deal in my brain. I went there in 3 months. Not only my sciatica sort of left me, but also I started seeing changes in my own body. I started losing weight. I started eating healthy. I really started feeling good. Like that was probably the first time when I was not flinching from being naked and having the light on in front of my partner while having sex. Because all the time I would be so ashamed of my body. And then he would tell me, what has gone into you? Like, what have you become? And you see the ripple effect that was happening in so many other areas of my life. And I started speaking in a more confident way. The promise that my trainer made me was, you will just get rid of the sciatica. And that promise was enough for me at that moment. He did not say you will build muscles. He did not say that you will have amazing sex and relationship with your partner. He didn't say that you will have better confidence. He just said that this pain will leave you. Simple. And yet, it's been 4 years. I'm continuing to work with him. In the process, I've built muscles. I've gained more confidence. I feel so much better about my body. The way I look has changed. If you look at my previous YouTube videos, you will see that they're like two different people. He just has 3 clients, and all of 3 are like extremely high paying clients, and he makes all the money that he needs from these 3 clients. Rest is just little here and there online training. But the majority of his money, 70%, comes from these 3 clients, all 3 of us. And with each one of us, he has worked for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, one client for 5 years. What I mean to say is that number one, you don't need a guarantee, which is the sun and the moon. He just said, your sciatica will go. And that was enough for me to continue for 4 years paying him so much of money. Like I pay him near about 60 to 70K per month. And that's number one, that when you want to give results to a client, you don't have to promise the sun and the moon. Give them what you can give them with what you have and what they need in that moment. Just like I just needed to get rid of that pain, right? Number two, always over deliver. He over delivered because that's the reason I'm with him. Like I started seeing results that he did not even tell me I would see. So always over deliver. And in the beginning, you might want to underprice and over deliver. Like I went all the way to Rohini to give that result with that kind of pricing, right? And lastly, uh, at the end of the day, people are actually looking for a human to human connection. And that is the only reason that they will hold on to you. So people believe that they have exhausted their list when they believe that they actually need more people to make more money. And that's not true. 3 people is enough for that particular trainer to have made around 2 to 3 lakhs in a month. And he has not even changed those 3 people. I'm not willing to let go of him. If some client comes and says, I'll give you 90K, I will retain him and I'll give him 90K. I'll not let him go. So you want clients like that, who wouldn't want to let you go. So you wouldn't even need new people. You will never exhaust your list because you don't need the list. You would continue working with people who are working with you already.
I love that. I'm just like I had questions and you answered them all by what you were saying, because I was like, okay, this promise of 3 months and this will happen. How do you build the confidence to be able to make that promise? Because you promise something that's already under your belt, already something that you can freaking be like, I am behind this 100%.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
200.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've had a really good conversation, and I want to ask you if you are up for showing the coach in you on the podcast live with something that you can guide me through.
Yeah. So come up with anything that you want me to help you with, and I'll try.
Yeah, I don't think you'll try. I think you will definitely do a really great job and over deliver. So I guess I can just throw around some things that sort of are in the back of my mind all at all times. Like you said that there was this thing and that was bothering you. There are three things that always I have this fear I will lose my wealth all of a sudden. And that's where the saving, holding comes in from. Like I will do everything. And even if I have enough money, there's like, oh, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough. Sort of keeps spiraling. And this is tied in with my biggest fear anyone who asks is a mediocre life. I can never live a mediocre. And my mediocre life image is of I am from Haryana. So being alive is a blessing. I would start there. But to be married off into a village or even if a town or city, but in a family where I am not doing anything. So that's my mediocre life fear, that I cannot do that. I can never be that. And I'm literally at that age where it has all started. So I'm running away from it. And I have to push really hard to make it happen. So I have to push really hard to get clients. When I have a high month, let's say, I will hit a wall of stagnation and all of that. So that's like some of the themes that are there. If
Yeah.
can help you out with.
So there are three important thoughts that you've said. The one that I will lose it all. Secondly is that whatever I have and make doesn't feel enough.
Yeah.
And the third is the mediocre life. And you've given me the image of the mediocre life also, wherein getting married to someone that you don't, of course, want to, right? And living that kind of life. Which one of these feel the strongest for you?
Sure.
Which
I
one of
think
yours?
it's not enough. Right now, at this moment, yes, it's been not enough as a theme that has been playing out and bothering me.
Not enough money or not enough as self?
Both, for sure. The self thing, I think I've got it sorted a little, but not enough money because I'm living in Australia right now. So there's this income is in INR, money is coming in INR, but spending in dollars and not asking for parents because of the stuck up ego and all of the things that I have around parents. So I'm like, I'm not gonna ask them. I'm gonna figure it out. I have it all sorted, but at the same time, it's still every time you have to order that pizza.
Oh,
No, I don't have enough. I would still order it, but that thought behind it,
yeah.
I don't have enough.
So how sure are you that when you see this thought playing out as I don't have enough money versus the reality of do I really have at the end of the month? Is it true? Like, is it true that you really don't have enough money at the end of the month if you do continue to live your life the way you want to live?
The way I want to live, I would say, I guess I do have it somewhere in the month for sure. But right now, I have enough money to sustain myself. The way I'm living, even with some extra orders and stuff, till the end of my visa. So I am secure, and if at the end I go broke, I can just go back home and I'll be fine. So I have that secure net. I
Mm.
show myself that secure net, and still that feeling of you still don't have enough, you need to save. If there is a slow month in business, you are doomed.
What's going to happen? So when you say you are doomed, there's a voice, you are doomed, you clearly can see an image of what doom looks like. So what does that image look like for you?
If I don't have enough money, I would have to,
What is the worst thing that would happen and how would that look like image-wise?
yeah, me calling my parents, asking for money, and them sending it, but the big chunk of thoughts that are going to come along with it of
Yeah.
even if it's unsaid, I feel like I can pick it up that you've not done a good enough job, and we knew it wouldn't work out, your business wouldn't work out, this choice was wrong, and all of these messages coming in like disappointment. I think you're asking for an image. It's that look of disappointment, that the specific one that my dad has. Just look at him and I know that look, and it just
Yeah.
me crushing down weight.
Okay. We'll just look at this image for 2 minutes, okay?
Oh, that's I'm already.
Let's just look at this image for 2 minutes. You may close your eyes, but if it feels too activating for you, there's no need to close your eyes.
Okay.
So if you just look at this image, the disappointing look of my dad, and there are these unsaid words which are coming where you did not do enough. We knew it's not going to work out. You should have For example, you should have listened to me, something like that. And as you notice, as you witness that disappointment that he has on his face, all you've got to do is turn him around, okay, in your image, and let him look at his dad. Just hold that image of he turning around, and now you are the witness. He no longer is the witness, and he's looking at his dad, and see if his expression changes or he continues to feel disappointed.
He's getting angry, talking to his dad, my grandfather.
Because
If you wouldn't have left, because my dad left, right? So if you wouldn't have left, our family wouldn't have gone apart. We would still be like, you didn't listen to me. The same thing. You
Yeah.
didn't listen to me. I told you that you should have done what we were doing. It's like push 10 inches and you continue what we were doing, but you chose to go out. I supported you, but see what has happened now. Because my family fell apart after that. Then my his brother died, and who was a very wealthy, very well known, fame, like everything you can. His buffaloes and everywhere are everywhere in the news.
yeah,
He died, and his wealth got taken away and everything. And now then there was another brother who is taking care of it, but his health is not good. And there's like these feuds and stuff like black magic and stuff that goes around.
I get
So those things and everything has fallen apart basically. One has big house, one has small house, not doing well, no man in the house and all of that. So this I
Yeah.
was him arguing, but he was his current self only. I didn't
Yeah.
the younger
So
self.
all you've got to do is uh, it is possible that you might be seeing him this way, and I want you to look at him this way, where here is dad and here is grandpa, and around grandpa are probably all of these family members where he has sort of separated and taken his own route and own life. And you also need to see dad carrying something heavy like a rock
Mhm.
in his hands, like a rock or a big bag or something really, really heavy. And while you look at him, there is a mental words where you say that, Dad, that's what you carry.
Mm.
And while I am super proud of you doing what you did, at the same time, this is also not my place to tell you whether you did right or wrong. But I can certainly say that this is not me. I may have lived a really strong and large part of your story for the longest time by repeating, by being exactly as you are, but this is not for me to carry. So I'm going to take a small little moment to open up my body and breathe out these feelings that I am the one who's wrong. I am the one who's disappointed. I am the one who brings negative, bad, difficult names to this family. I'm going to breathe all of that out, Dad, because I know this is not actually my story. I live in the shadow of it because I love you. And it's difficult for me to not take things from you, including this. But right now, I'm just going to breathe it out to you. And I'll continue to see you taking what you took, knowing very well that you can handle it. Because at the end of the day, you are my father. And all stories of how I could bring disappointment to you, I'm going to leave it with you from here on. Because I see it doesn't begin with me.
Yeah. That I see what you mean by over deliver. Yeah, that was really helpful. Like I saw him in a different light, and the moment you said turn him around, face
Yeah.
my dad, I automatically saw him talk, which
Yeah.
unusual because my granddad never talked. He
Yeah,
was deaf, and um he was the nicest guy I know, but we didn't talk so much. And I saw him speaking Haryanvi and everything, like the whole conversation was
yeah.
translating through, and I was like, so yes.
Most of the time, the things that we feel about our lives, which also percolate down to our business, and then we feel less, sometimes unworthy, sometimes not enough. These are also feelings and emotions that haven't begun with us. When we can find the source point, then what happens is we can begin practicing on a day-to-day basis to release those feelings to the source point,
Mhm.
right?
Makes sense. Hey, I am in awe of this episode and everything magical that's about to happen to the people listening to this. And that is where I would love for you to share what can someone listening to this episode take away, one thing you want them to know, to tattoo on their head or something like that.
Yeah, I really want people to believe that, first of all, if someone like me who had no hopes from life and who did not know if he would be able to get out of bed could come up till here, I want you to believe that it's a design, the words of my mother. It is a design, and you are being led to the best possible outcome always. You've got to truly either find someone or use your own brain to tell yourself that it's actually working out for me no matter what, right? Number two, it's absolutely fine to not know what you want in life. Like, I never knew what I wanted in life. I never had heard of regression therapy. I had never heard of coaching. Well, in a place like Guwahati, you don't get to hear these things, right? But then I went on a discovery to find out what I wanted, never knowing what it would turn out to be. But I found. So if you're truly looking for what you desire and how it would make you feel, you would find that exact thing that would make you feel good. And lastly, once you find it, don't give it up. Like, once you find it, pursue it to the T, which is why I say that when you love a certain, let's say, modality or a certain form of practice, or even if you don't have a modality, you practice a way of being, you teach something, you coach something. It may not have a name, but you like it. Don't give it up. Tell people about it every single day. If you want to be in any kind of business that makes you money, you cannot be in a business that you hate because you don't like doing it. So might as well find something that you really, really like and spend all of that energy, which you spend in not liking and still doing it, into liking something and doing it and believing that other people would also want it. Like when I was learning regression work and no one knew about it, and they would say, what is regression? Is this some jadoo tona and stuff like that? And I would explain them with all my patience because I thought, I have found such an amazing, magical thing. Which person will not like it? Because I was so much in love with it, right? So really find something that you are deeply in love with. Take your time to fall in love with it. It may not happen overnight, but once you do, then spend your entire lifetime not just pursuing it, telling the whole world how beautiful it is, which is why I say make the offer multiple times, multiple times, multiple times. Right? That's what I mean by making the offer multiple times. Yeah.
Love that you shared about transmuting your energy to not believing in it to believing in it. And the thing you said about because usually I've seen people get annoyed when don't understand what they do.
Yeah.
Instead of showing passion behind, no, listen, there is so much magic in this thing. Let me show you. And they would stop talking about it altogether,
Yeah.
thinking not worth because this person will just not understand. Maybe
Yeah.
they won't, but maybe later it will click for them. So just leave that thought there for them instead of giving up all hopes and
Simple
expectations.
example, if you, let's say, like Thai curry, and then you go with 9 friends of yours who are not into Thai food, they want to have Indian and Japanese and other food, you would actually take that bowl of Thai curry and say, no, 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 have a spoon, have a spoon. You would do that, right? Why do you do that? Because you love it so much, you cannot give up the belief. How can someone not like it? Right? That it's like that.
I love it. And I believe after this conversation, people are definitely going to want to find you. How do you sign you up? Hello? What is the place where you hang out the most? Where can people
Oh,
find? And
it's one place. It's Instagram. It's Instagram. I have a yeah.
I'll link.
Yeah, my Instagram ID handle is at the rate DRGAURAV at Dr. Gaurav Deka. I also have a website, www.drgauravdeka.co.in. But I hang out there most. So if you want to have a conversation with me, you want to DM me, Instagram is the place, I would say. There are many other places, but then let's just keep it to one.
Yeah, I love that. Simplify. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gaurav, for coming
Thank
on the podcast today and
you.
giving me such valuable amount of time. Thank you for tuning into your Spiritual Business Coach podcast and for listening to this episode. You've made it till the end of this episode, which means you have received a lot of universal codes that were packed into it. So take time to receive them and let them get coded in your soul. And if you are feeling a little too generous, I would love for you to drop me a review or rating on whatever platform you are listening this. If you feel the nudge to tell me what you felt about this episode or to inquire about how you can work with me, drop me a message on Instagram at Listening Stories Untold, and I will see you in the next episode.